Backchat TV. Subscribe.
He has also talked about it. That left hook is so good, and it's so long and so precise and so hard, but
What's going on, guys? It's Backchat TV and I'm back with another video. So Joe Joyce, we're going to speak about Joe Joyce briefly and his career prospects going forward after his devastating 2 back-to-back losses against the same man, Zhilei Zhang. Can he bounce back from it? What can he achieve in the time that he has left in the sport at 38 years old? There's a lot of questions. I've got a lot of questions about Joe Joyce, and unfortunately I'm not as positive as maybe some supporters of him may be. One of the reasons is because I've actually been quite a detractor, you could say, of Joe Joyce from the beginning. I thought he had a specific style which gels quite well with a certain style. Outside of that style, I never really rated Joe Joyce. I was always one of those people that said that. I'm not a hater, but the first time I saw him, I saw his attributes, you know, that amazing engine, the fact that he's a huge door frame of a man, the fact that he never takes a step backwards, the fact that he had a granite chin. It's been a little bit exposed now, but you know, those were his attributes. But for me, the things that never made me believe in him as a top heavyweight were his speed, you know, the slowness. I've always said it. That's one of the reasons why I thought he wouldn't beat Daniel Dubois. And surprisingly, he did beat Daniel Dubois. So I had to reassess him, and he went up in my estimation. That's actually when I started to see Joe Joyce in a different light. Before Daniel Dubois, I did not believe in Joe Joyce at all. I thought he was too slow hand speed, relatively fast foot speed, you know, normal, I'd say average foot speed, extremely slow reaction speed. But hand speed, I just thought he was way too slow and way too easy to hit. Now, at lower weights, you can get away with this, but at the heavyweight, if you're too slow and too easy to hit, it only takes one punch to catch you in the right place and you're done for. And that was the danger I always had for Joe Joyce. He always looked hittable, no matter what stance, whether he had his hands up or not, which he doesn't normally have his hands up, and he's always been hittable. And he's always been hit until his trainers had to kind of really get in his head that he has to get his hands up. And then that's when we saw Joe Joyce make attempts to, you know, duck and weave and get out of the way and get his hands up and improve his defense. And although he's improved his defense, he just always looked vulnerable to me. Vulnerable of getting hit, not necessarily knocked out, because it's very hard to hurt Joe Joyce, but getting hit. And you know, he got hit by almost every fighter he's fought. He's been hit. It's just that it didn't make much impact on him. And that's quite important to remember, because when he came up against Zhilei Zhang, a man who is the same size, or actually a little bit bigger, those punches that landed had significantly bigger impacts, as we saw. I think this is very important to what I'm going to go on to say about Joe Joyce's prospects going forward at 38 years old. Now, let me just say that Queensbury, Frank Warren, have matched up Joe Joyce with an opponent for March the 16th on the Magnificent 7 card. I'm sure he'll be headlining that card. It's not even in London, it's in Birmingham. It's a comparatively small show to what Joe Joyce is used to. I think he's come down a lot of levels after this loss, and I was extremely surprised when they revealed who he's going to be fighting. You know, before they revealed his opponent, I had in my mind completely different opponents that I thought they would match him up with. You know, I was thinking because Wilder lost, maybe Wilder would be back in there with him. You know, maybe a Kubrat Pulev, maybe anyone, Tony Yoka, someone that we know, maybe even the big guy, Russian guy who lost, Makhmudov. I mean, great fight. I think they could sell Makhmudov and Joe Joyce all day. Those two would collide like two massive trains crashing into each other. Definitely a fun fight. I mean, like I said, I'd watch it. I think a lot of people would love to watch these two giants go at each other. There's so many fights that they could have made, but they came up with Kash Ali. Now, I didn't know what to make of this. I thought they were joking, but, you know, they announced Kash Ali. And I think there's a few things with this that I don't like. Either they don't care about Joe Joyce, because if they did care about Joe Joyce, you know, they would match him up with someone who's going to give Joe Joyce a little bit of respect if he wins. You know, a good name, someone who we know. You know, if he was to fight a Makhmudov and look dominant against Makhmudov, we could start believing in Joe Joyce. If he was to beat a Makhmudov, if he was to beat a Kubrat Pulev, even though Pulev is like 40 years old, he's always fought at a high level. He's given a lot of people trouble. He's a respectable name, Pulev. He's no easy job at all. And if Joe Joyce was to win, that would be a respectful win, comeback fight, you know. If we were to see him against a Tony Yoka, you know, he was an up-and-coming prospect, kind of fell by the wayside a little bit. You know, that would be a good win for Joe Joyce. So many fights, so many fighters. There's many that I haven't even thought of. You know, I would have liked to see them even match him up against Big Baby Miller. That would be a good fight. Obviously, Big Baby Miller probably wouldn't be available. That's just me fantasizing about good matchups. But yeah, Big Baby Miller maybe not so much. Obviously, he just came off that knockout loss to Dubois, so he needs time to... He probably wouldn't be ready in time, and plus he's based in America. And this fight event would be based in Birmingham, so not such a realistic proposal. But you get the general idea. There's many different fighters that Joe Joyce could have fought. Efe Ajagba, that's a much more realistic fight. Get rid of Miller. Efe Ajagba, I'm sure they could have made that fight. My point is, there are many available fighters out there that would have given him the opportunity to come back and have a good win against a good opponent, you know, and have people believing in him again. Also to sell the fight, there's different fighters that would have been more exciting, a more exciting prospect than Kash Ali. And also, not just for the fans, but for Joe Joyce himself to get motivated over. Kash Ali, I think, you know, Queensbury just didn't want to pay anyone decent money, and they just got Kash Ali in their last minute notice. They know that that guy hasn't had a fight since I don't know how long, and he would take whatever he's given, and they could just get Joe Joyce back in there, knock this guy out, and then, you know, just keep him busy. And I think maybe they just want to get him in with someone while they concentrate on the fighters they really care about. They've got the biggest fight of their lives coming up, Frank Warren, with Tyson Fury and Usyk for Undisputed. They probably don't have time to think about Joe Joyce, which is a shame. Joe Joyce has got the kind of character where he's always going to be taken advantage of because he's just too nice, you know. And this is the truth. People are going to take advantage of people who are not really going to argue back. Joe Joyce is the kind of person who's just going to accept what he's given. Very easy person to get along with. He was given Kash Ali and he took it. The problem I have with this Kash Ali fight is that, like I said, if he wins, which 90% obviously we know he should win. That's another thing I'm going to talk about, but he should win. If he wins, it kind of leaves him in the same position. You know, no one is going to believe in him more because he beat Kash Ali. If Kash Ali has any type of success with Joe Joyce at all, we're going to say that he's finished. We're going to see that as a loss for Joe Joyce. You know, if he wins, we're going to say, yeah, but look how many times he got hit. Kash Ali doesn't do anything for Joe Joyce. Now, we could say it just keeps him busy. It just keeps him active. But it kind of takes him further away from getting a shot at anyone real. That's one thing I don't like about it. The other thing is, fighters who put a lot of effort into training and getting up for a fight, which is very difficult. You have to train, you have to get your mind prepared, especially after a knockout. To go through all that, you have to have motivation. How many people know what it's like to be unmotivated to do something? Sometimes you can't even get out of bed to get dressed if you're not motivated. You know, so I can't expect Joe Joyce to be motivated to fight someone like Kash Ali. And what happens if you fight someone and you're not motivated? You have a chance of losing. This is one thing I don't like. Joe Joyce, and a lot of people are going to say, what I'm saying is ridiculous, I understand. But Joe Joyce has a very real chance of losing to Kash Ali because, number one, he's not motivated. He's seen him as a stepping stone. I saw Joe Joyce in an interview, and it's almost like he couldn't even be bothered to really get motivated about the fight. He was just thinking of, his way back to the top, and he seemed very unmotivated. And he was kind of like, yeah, I'll just go in, do my job. I got Kash Ali next, and then we'll see what happens. There was no motivation. Whereas, what do you think Kash Ali is thinking? He's probably celebrating this fight with his family, and he's probably motivated more than he's ever been before. Now, someone could say, what does it matter? A motivated Kash Ali still can't do anything to Joe Joyce. I disagree. I think any motivated 6'6" man, yes, Kash Ali is listed at 6'6". You might think he's a rubbish fighter, but he's just as big as Joe Joyce. I don't know his weight, but he's a big man. And I think he's actually got faster hand speed. And I'm not trying to say this to say, Kash Ali is going to win. But what I'm trying to say is, when you've got one man in Joe Joyce who is completely unmotivated to fight someone like Kash Ali, who's probably more motivated than he's ever been, that's dangerous. When you have a man like Kash Ali, who most people don't know, 50% of people watching this probably have never heard of Kash Ali. The other 50% who have heard of him probably cannot think of one fight that Kash Ali has been in. Now, most people is going to remember the David Price fight. That was quite memorable, all for the wrong reasons, because during the fight, Kash Ali realised that he couldn't win, and he bit David Price on the abdomen, I think it was, and I think on the shoulder or something, twice. That's the only thing he's really known for. But when I've looked at some highlights of Kash Ali, he's actually quite dangerous. That's the funny thing, he's actually quite unpredictable. He throws quite unpredictable shots. He's got punching power. He's actually got quite a mean uppercut, to be honest. I'm not holding him up as the next Anthony Joshua or anything, but he does have a mean uppercut. Apart from that, I can't think of any particular skills that stand out, but he's still a threat. And Joe Joyce, I think, falls apart against people his size. I think size has got a lot to do with it. Joe Joyce wins these fights by being physically bigger than his opponents. He's able to absorb their punches. He corners them because he does have good stamina and decent speed. They can't get out of the way. He throws 100 shots a minute and people get overwhelmed. And he has decent power because of the fact that he's a big man. I don't think he generates that much power from his technique or anything. He's just a big man. And so anything he throws from that close distance that he likes to force you into is going to be powerful. And it's going to have an effect, and it has an effect on smaller men. We've seen that with Joseph Parker. Joseph Parker, a man who, in my opinion, most people's opinion even, is vastly more talented than Joe Joyce. Better head movement, better defense, better punching technique, faster hand speed and foot speed. We saw the way he was defeated by Joe Joyce. Joseph Parker in that fight against Joe Joyce, he threw the kitchen sink at Joe Joyce, and Joe Joyce hardly batted an eyelid at some of the punches, and eventually Joseph Parker just ran out of steam. Now, a lot of people say Joseph Parker was actually sick before the fight, which, fair enough, but the point is that he couldn't hurt Joe Joyce, and this is all to do with size. Now, I'm not trying to say that Joe Joyce only has size, but he has been fortunate to fight a lot of opposition where size has been his advantage. In the heavyweight division, you can outweigh someone by 40 or 50 pounds quite easily, and that doesn't happen at the lower weights, and we see at lower weights, just a small increase of a weight difference makes all the difference. It's very difficult for a 140-pound fighter to beat a 147-pound fighter, and it's just 7 pounds difference. So imagine someone 40 or 50 pounds heavier. The difference in weight at heavyweight negates the difference in skills. So you could see a Joe Joyce fight somebody like Alexander Usyk, someone vastly more experienced and more skilled, and the fight be competitive. And actually, that's what actually happened. Joe Joyce fought Alexander Usyk in the amateurs, I believe, and I watched the fight. and it was very competitive. Although Alexander Usyk won, you know, we clearly saw in that fight that Alexander Usyk had trouble pushing Joe Joyce back. He couldn't, and he found it very hard to hurt him, and in the end he was kind of just point scoring and just outboxed him. But Joe Joyce wasn't really hurt by Usyk, and Usyk was really trying to land power shots on Joyce, and he caught him a few times, but he didn't really hurt Joe Joyce in that fight, and that's an example of size at heavyweight. You know, so I think we've kind of overestimated Joe Joyce's skill and abilities. What we're actually seeing with Joe Joyce is a man who's overrated and who's just very good at implementing his size and being quite physical against smaller opponents. And that doesn't really translate to opponents that are the same size. Fighters who have similar dimensions often find it easier to hit Joe Joyce. He doesn't have a massive reach advantage over them. They have more time to move out the way because of it, and you know, they tend to be able. He's not able to use his body weight as much and his height as much to pressure them into the corner and things like that. You know, and they can kind of tie him up in the clinch without being kind of like outmanned in a way. So, you know, it'll be interesting to see how he does against another 6'6" guy. I do expect Joe Joyce to be stronger than Kash Ali, but at the same time, it's just going to be interesting to see Joe Joyce fighting a man who is the same height at least. And there's not going to be such an obvious size difference. That, like I said, at heavyweight, that plays a part. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was an upset here. But let me know what you think. Do you think Joe Joyce should retire? Who do you think is going to fight next? Do you think it's 100% no chance that he loses against Kash Ali, like I've been suggesting? Don't get me wrong, I wouldn't put any money on it or anything like that Kash Ali would win. I'm just trying to say that the danger is there because of, you know, recent events and Joe Joyce not being motivated and Kash Ali being more motivated and Kash Ali being unpredictable and Joe Joyce being extremely predictable, and the dimensions of the two men being quite similar. All these things kind of go against Joe Joyce. That's basically what I'm saying. So I'm not saying that Joe Joyce is going to lose, but I give Kash Ali a chance in this fight. Let me know what you think. I'm on to the next one.
I said, guess who's back? Man, guess who's back? I said, guess who's